All right, let's talk. We've all been there, haven't we? Planted a tiny seed of an idea, a dream that felt bigger than ourselves, only to be met with raised eyebrows and stifled laughter. But let me tell you something, the most delicious vindication comes not from external validation, but from witnessing the silent, humbling realization dawning on the faces of those who doubted you. Human nature is a funny thing. People often project their own limitations onto others. That skepticism, that disbelief says more about their own perceived shortcomings than it ever could about your potential. When reality finally catches up with your vision, well, let's just say pride takes a nosedive. Remember those who swore you were all talk, who dismissed your passion as naive fantasy. The punchline is about to land, and it's not on you. What we're about to unpack is the raw, unvarnished truth about the humiliation those naysayers experience, a truth they'd rather bury than admit. Ready to witness the unveiling? First off, their humiliation is direct evidence of how much they secretly wanted you to fail. It's a brutal truth, but stick with me. Embarrassment doesn't magically appear. It's fueled by the silent investments they made in your downfall. They needed you to stay small to keep their own worldviews from being challenged. Now, the very reality they swore would never exist is staring them in the face, burning their egos from the inside out. Don't underestimate how much people need to be right, especially about you. When they doubt you, they're often betting on a sure thing, attaching their own egos to your perceived failure. They're watching, waiting, maybe even silently hoping for proof that you'll never become who you said you would. The louder you declared your ambitions, the more desperate they became to shut you down in their own minds. So when the tables turn, the humiliation feels immense, not because of your achievements, but because of the energy they wasted on your downfall. What truly eats at them is the realization that your triumph doesn't just validate you, it publicly exposes their flawed judgment. It reveals the weakness of their insight, the fragility of their ego, and the smallness of their spirit. They can't escape the fact that they didn't just miscalculate. They pinned their self-worth on the prediction that you wouldn't make it, and the collapse of that illusion is devastating. That's why you might notice some awkward avoidance or a sudden chill when your name pops up. They don't hate you, they hate what your success reflects back at them. Their words, their laughter, their doubts didn't just harmlessly fade away. They've come full circle, revealing their true character in the light of your truth. The humiliation isn't just about your brilliance, it's about their shadows being illuminated, and that's a weight they can't simply shrug off. Are you starting to see the patterns here? Secondly, they're forced to confront their own limitations. When they realize you are indeed who you said you were, it cuts deeper than mere misjudgment. What truly stings is the realization that their doubt was never about your potential. It was a reflection of their own self-doubt. They weren't questioning whether you had the capacity. They were projecting their own disbelief in themselves onto you. And now that the truth has surfaced, they can't avoid the uncomfortable reality that their judgment was a distorted mirror reflecting their own smallness. This is the kind of shame that lingers because it forces them to confront why they couldn't see what was right in front of them. The truth is, you gave them glimpses of who you were becoming. You carried it in your words, in your tenacity, and in the quiet resilience that kept you moving forward. But instead of acknowledging it, they dismissed it because recognizing your greatness would have forced them to question their own complacency. It's easier to dismiss someone than to admit that maybe you're the one who isn't reaching for more. That's why your rise bothers them so much now. Every step you take into the fullness of who you are shines a light on their inability to recognize and respect greatness when it was right beside them. It's humiliating because it reveals something most people never want to confront. Their standards were too low, their vision too limited, and their perspective too narrow. Your truth didn't expose their ignorance about you. It exposed their lack of belief in themselves. The human ego hates to admit it was blind, and even more so when that blindness was self-inflicted. They didn't just miss it, they actively refused to see it. And now the evidence of your authenticity leaves them defenseless. It's no longer about doubting your words. It's about realizing their doubt was a prison they built for themselves. Seeing you break free from that prison only makes their own walls feel tighter. This is the humiliation they're wrestling with now. The realization that you didn't fall short. They did. They couldn't imagine greatness beyond themselves, and now your very existence proves just how small their imagination truly was. Can you relate? Thirdly, their mockery was a flimsy mask for fear, and that mask has now crumbled. The jokes, the snide remarks, the dismissals, they were never really about you. They were always about them desperately trying to shield their own insecurity. That's the hard pill they're now forced to swallow. Every sarcastic comment, every dismissive laugh, every attempt to make you look foolish was nothing more than a protective layer they wore to hide the fear of what your potential represented. They wanted to convince themselves and others that you were a joke because deep down they were terrified that you might actually become everything you said you would be. Now that reality has unfolded, the mask has been ripped off, leaving them exposed. Mockery has always been the weapon of the insecure. It's cheap, it's loud, and it demands no real effort. People who are secure in themselves don't waste energy tearing others down. They're too focused on building their own lives, but the ones who mocked you had nothing else to stand on. Their ridicule was a shield, a way to avoid looking at their own lack of vision or courage. And now that your truth is undeniable, that shield has shattered. The same words they used to make you look small now echo back as proof of their own fear. What humiliates them most is realizing that their mockery didn't stop you. They wasted so much time convincing themselves that if they laughed enough, doubted enough, or gossiped enough, it would somehow derail you. But you kept moving forward, and now your life exposes the futility of their efforts. The joke has been reversed, but this time it's not on you. It's on them. That's a bitter pill for the ego to swallow. It means they have to confront the fact that all their energy, all their dismissive behavior was wasted on trying to deny what they secretly knew might be true. And when the truth finally stands, there's nowhere left to hide. Their laughter no longer sounds confident. It sounds hollow because it came from fear. This is the humiliation they're living with now. The undeniable proof that what they mocked has matured into something undeniable. They thought mockery would protect them from facing their insecurity, but instead it has become the very evidence that exposes it. Does this resonate with your own experiences? Moving on. Remember that character outweighs performance. They tried to define you by the moments you stumbled, the times you stayed quiet, and the mistakes everyone else was quick to highlight. Every setback was twisted into proof that you weren't capable, that your words were hollow, and that your claims about yourself were exaggerated. They looked at the surface, the moments of struggle, and assumed they knew the whole story. They mistook temporary challenges for permanent failure, and in doing so, thought they had you all figured out. But what they didn't understand is that character can't be rushed. It can't be faked, and it certainly can't be judged by fleeting circumstances. While they were busy tallying your mistakes and counting your pauses, you were quietly building resilience, shaping your values, and strengthening your foundation. Every silent season, every challenge endured, every moment when you chose integrity over convenience was stacking proof against their judgments. Performance is loud and visible, but character is the quiet engine that keeps you moving even when no one is watching. Now as they watch you standing taller, growing stronger, and shining brighter, the humiliation hits them harder than any failure ever could. They realize that the qualities they discounted, patience, consistency, moral strength, and inner discipline, are exactly what made you unshakable. While they were preoccupied with snapshots of your life, you were shaping the whole picture, and it's one they can't argue with. The revelation is brutal. No matter how loudly they talked, no matter how many errors they pointed out, character always outlasts performance. Integrity doesn't crumble under scrutiny, and consistency doesn't need applause to prove its worth. Their discomfort comes from the realization that true value can't be measured by quick wins or visible successes alone. They counted on short-term flaws to define you, but long-term truth doesn't work that way. The deeper lesson they're forced to see is simple yet painful: performance can be fleeting. Appearances can be deceiving, but character, real, unshakable character, is permanent, undeniable, and in the end, the thing that truly matters. Consider this: their attempts to rewrite your story collapsed against the solid wall of reality. They spent hours twisting facts, spinning tales, and reshaping narratives to make themselves look smarter and you smaller. Every rumor, every exaggerated claim, every attempt to misrepresent your motives was a brick in the wall they hoped would contain your truth. They painted you as unreliable, incapable, or unworthy, believing that if enough people believed the story they told, it would become the reality. They convinced themselves that perception could overpower truth, that repetition could overwrite authenticity. But reality has a way of exposing those constructions, and your life refused to bend to their imagination. Now their entire narrative is collapsing in slow motion. Every carefully planted rumor, every manipulated detail, every whispered lie is being contradicted by the undeniable evidence of who you are and what you've accomplished. Their version of events, once confident and polished, now looks fragile, desperate, and absurd. They're left watching the truth shine where their fiction failed, choking on the humiliation of having tried to control a story that wasn't theirs to control. The weight of this revelation is heavier than they anticipated. It's not just about being proven wrong. It's about the public and personal acknowledgement that their attempts to distort reality didn't just fail. They backfired. Every person who believed their story is now faced with a contradiction they can't ignore, and the doubt they tried to sow has returned to them like a mirror reflecting their own weakness and insecurity. What's truly painful for them is understanding that truth doesn't negotiate. No amount of spin manipulation or repetition can rewrite what has already happened or what is already becoming. The story they wanted to tell no longer exists because your reality has written itself into being in the most undeniable way. They wanted to control perception, but perception is irrelevant when authenticity stands this tall. The collapse of their attempts leaves them not just embarrassed, but exposed, helpless, and painfully aware that reality is always the final authority. Furthermore, they now realize they were fighting against cold, hard evidence, not just blind faith. They spent so much time criticizing you, assuming your self-belief was nothing more than arrogance or empty boasting. Every confident word, every bold claim, every step you took toward your vision was interpreted as overconfidence or naivete. They didn't see it as proof of preparation, resilience, and strategy. They saw it as a challenge to their own understanding, something they needed to dismiss to feel comfortable in their assumptions. They were convinced that if they could belittle your confidence enough, they could convince themselves and others that it was all just talk. But as your life unfolded, it became impossible for them to ignore the truth. What they labeled arrogance was actually consistent effort. What they mocked as fantasy was meticulous planning. What they assumed would fail became undeniable results. Every step you took confirmed what you always knew about yourself, and every success added weight to the reality they had refused to see. Their doubt was never about you alone. It was about their refusal to recognize the evidence sitting right in front of them. Now, humiliation sets in because they realize they weren't just questioning your faith in yourself. They were fighting against proof. Your results became the language they could no longer translate into their limited worldview. Their dismissal, ridicule, and disbelief weren't protecting them from your ego. They were protecting themselves from confronting the fact that your life, your growth, and your achievements had already surpassed what they were willing to imagine. The worst part for them is that it isn't just that you succeeded. It's that you succeeded exactly as you said you would in ways they insisted were impossible. Their attempts to write you off, to minimize your vision, to label your confidence as folly now backfire as they face the reality they refuse to accept. The evidence has a way of humbling even the loudest critics, and in this case it's doing so with a force they cannot escape. Your life doesn't just validate you. It exposes their denial in the most public, undeniable way. Their humiliation isn't fleeting. It's a slow, relentless acknowledgement that everything they fought against, every doubt, every whisper, every judgment, was not against empty words or blind hope. It was against hard, tangible evidence of your capability, consistency, and truth, and that reality hits harder than any argument ever could. What's more, their exposure isn't just a personal matter. It's collective and far-reaching. The moment they realize you are exactly who you said you were, the humiliation doesn't stay private. It spills into every circle they inhabit, every conversation they thought was under control, and every reputation they tried to manage. What they believed was a personal secret, a small victory in proving you wrong, suddenly becomes a public spectacle. Their disbelief, their gossip, and their attempts to minimize you are now being witnessed by people who respected or followed their judgment, and seeing them unravel in front of others adds a weight that personal shame alone could never achieve. They have to watch as their credibility falters. Every person they tried to influence against you begins to see cracks in their arguments, inconsistencies in their claims, and the unmistakable evidence that they were wrong. Their position as someone in the know or in control evaporates, leaving them exposed. The embarrassment is intensified because it's no longer confined to their private frustration. It's a visible, undeniable truth that others are processing alongside them. Their misjudgment is on display, and there's no hiding from the ripple effect it creates. The collective nature of this exposure also forces them to confront their influence or lack thereof. People who once sided with them now have to question why they believed the misrepresentations, why they allowed someone to be diminished based on false narratives. The realization is brutal. Their attempts to control perception didn't just fail privately. They failed publicly, and everyone who watched their efforts now sees the stark contrast between what they claimed and what actually exists. This type of humiliation is relentless because it keeps replaying. Every social interaction, every mention of your name, and every memory of their attempt to undermine you serves as a reminder of their failure. They aren't just wrong in isolation. They are wrong in front of a wider audience, and that audience sees the full picture of their miscalculation. The personal sting is amplified by the collective witness, and that combination makes the humiliation far deeper than anything they could have imagined when they first doubted you. Now they are forced to reckon not only with your truth, but with the public collapse of their narrative. Their disbelief is no longer private frustration. It is a shared spectacle, a cautionary display of what happens when someone underestimates authenticity, consistency, and character. The exposure is complete, and they have nowhere to hide. Have you seen this play out in your own life? Plus, you became the mirror they'd been avoiding. Every step you've taken, every achievement, every moment of growth now acts like a reflection they cannot escape. They wanted to see you fail because it would make their own limitations feel less glaring, less real. But your rise refuses to accommodate their comfort. It forces them to confront the distance between who they are and who they could have been if they had acted with courage, vision, or integrity. The humiliation comes not from your success itself, but from the mirror it holds up to their own unrealized potential. They notice it in subtle ways. A pause when your name is mentioned, a flicker of recognition that they aren't where they could have been, a quiet envy disguised as indifference. Each time they see your life thriving while theirs remains stagnant or half-lived, They are confronted with the consequences of choices avoided, risks never taken, and talents ignored. Your existence becomes a scoreboard, silently keeping track of what they ignored in themselves. The more you shine, the more vivid the contrast becomes. Your accomplishments are not just victories over circumstance. They are evidence of what consistent effort, self-belief, and integrity can produce. And that evidence is devastating to anyone who has spent their life justifying mediocrity or avoiding responsibility. It isn't merely that you proved them wrong. It's that your life forces them to measure themselves against you and fail that test. The weight of this realization is often accompanied by defensiveness. They might try to rationalize your success, minimize your achievements, or dismiss them as luck, but deep down they know the truth. Your growth exposes the gaps in their own journey. They cannot deny the reflection you cast because it's precise, clear, and unavoidable. This is why their humiliation lingers. It isn't fleeting embarrassment or a single moment of being proven wrong. It's a constant gnawing awareness that while you moved forward, they remained behind, trapped in comparison and regret. Your life, your authenticity, and your relentless forward motion are a mirror showing exactly what they wasted. And the truth of that reflection stings far more than any public defeat ever could. How do you handle these kinds of reflections? And here's a key point: they underestimated that unwavering faith in yourself is a powerful weapon. They always thought your faith in yourself was naive or even arrogant. They assumed that believing in your own vision was a kind of foolishness, a soft excuse for lack of preparation or skill. They laughed at your confidence, dismissed your determination, and treated your self-assurance like a joke they didn't have to take seriously. In their eyes, faith in oneself was harmless, even entertaining, because they couldn't see it as a force that could move mountains. Now, as they watch the life you're building, the accomplishments you're stacking, and the reality you're shaping, the truth hits them hard. Faith in yourself is not fantasy. It is a weapon. It's the driving force behind consistency, resilience, and courage. It turns words into actions, ideas into results, and vision into reality. The same confidence they ridiculed is exactly what made you unstoppable, and the results are undeniable. Every success, every milestone, every time your life proves your declarations true, becomes a silent rebuke to the cynicism they carried. Their humiliation comes from the fact that what they mocked now commands respect. The joke they thought they were part of is no longer funny. It's a reality they cannot argue with. They tried to diminish your belief as overconfidence, but what they are seeing is the power of steadfast self-faith in action. And there's nothing they can do to take it back. The deeper sting is watching others recognize what they refuse to see. People who once shared their skepticism now witness the truth. And the respect flows toward you, not them. They realize that the weapon they ignored, the force they dismissed, was always real, and it was always in your hands. Their laughter, once aimed at you, now turns into silence because nothing they can say or do changes the results their mockery helped illuminate. This is the essence of their humiliation. They underestimated something they couldn't measure, couldn't control, and couldn't touch. Your faith in yourself wasn't just a belief. It was a force that reshaped reality, and the very people who dismissed it are left witnessing their own error. Every success you manifest is a reminder that faith in self isn't just mindset, hope, or wishful thinking. It's an undeniable power that turns ridicule into respect. What lessons have you learned about the power of self-belief? Don't forget, their ego simply can't process that you won without needing their approval. They believed that any success you achieved had to pass through their gatekeeping. In their minds, accomplishment wasn't just about effort, vision, or skill. It was about recognition, about them nodding, endorsing, and giving permission. They positioned themselves as gatekeepers, assuming that without their validation, nothing you did could hold real value. Every step you took without their input, every victory you claimed without their acknowledgement became a threat to their carefully constructed sense of importance. Now, seeing you thrive without waiting for their stamp, they're forced to confront a truth they never wanted to face: your success doesn't need them. Their approval was never a requirement, and their opinion never held the weight they imagined. This realization strikes at the core of their ego. The humiliation isn't just that you succeeded. It's that you succeeded entirely on your own terms, bypassing the very people who thought they controlled the narrative of your life. What makes this particularly unbearable is the exposure of their irrelevance. They assumed influence, but your results revealed that influence was never real. They positioned themselves as essential validators, yet your achievements demonstrate that their role was optional and their judgment inconsequential. Every milestone you reach becomes a mirror reflecting not only your power but their unnecessary interference, highlighting the emptiness of their assumed authority. The irony is sharp. They tried to assert control over your path to determine which of your actions counted, and now that control has evaporated. Your independence isn't just freedom. It's proof that their ego had no claim over you at all. Their discomfort grows every time someone acknowledges your achievements, and the lack of their involvement only emphasizes how misplaced their sense of importance was. The humiliation lingers because this isn't a fleeting realization. It's a permanent shift in perspective. They must now live with the undeniable fact that they were never the gatekeepers they thought they were. Your success, accomplished entirely without their permission, exposes the fragility of their pride and the irrelevance of their judgment. And in that exposure, they're left powerless, watching the very person they tried to control rise independently and unshakably. How does it feel to break free from those perceived gatekeepers? Moreover, remember that the humiliation is often generational, extending beyond just an emotional reaction. Their humiliation doesn't stop at the personal level. It stretches far beyond that, touching everyone around them. When someone misjudges a driven individual, it becomes a story that doesn't die quietly. It's a narrative that seeps into families, communities, and social circles, carried by whispers, conversations, and the inevitable comparisons. Every time your name comes up, every time someone recounts the truth of who you are, they're reminded that they miscalculated, misjudged, and doubted someone exceptional. That embarrassment isn't confined to a private thought. It's witnessed, remembered, and repeated. Their children, siblings, colleagues, and friends all become inadvertent spectators of this reckoning. People they respect may question their judgment or even laugh quietly at the contrast between their expectations and reality. The story of their misjudgment spreads quietly at first, then loudly, because truth has a way of making its presence known. And with each retelling, the sting of their error grows, embedding itself in reputations and long-term social memory. It's not just a lesson about you, it's a reflection on them. They must now reconcile their own credibility with the undeniable evidence of your authenticity. This isn't something that disappears overnight. It lingers in the eyes of those around them, in the subtle shifts in respect and in the quiet acknowledgments that they were wrong. The embarrassment compounds because it is repeated across contexts and generations, a reminder that their skepticism was misplaced and their attempts to diminish you failed. What makes this even more painful is the permanence of it. Unlike temporary mistakes or fleeting missteps, misjudging someone driven leaves a mark that doesn't fade. Even as time moves forward, the story circulates, becomes part of the social record, and quietly teaches others about what happens when someone underestimates integrity, vision, and strength. Their humiliation becomes woven into the fabric of social memory, passed along, recognized, and revisited every time your truth is acknowledged. This is why it's generational, not merely emotional. Their embarrassment extends beyond their own moment of recognition. It becomes a lasting legacy of miscalculation, and while it stings them endlessly, it stands as a subtle monument to your resilience, growth, and undeniable authenticity. What kind of legacy do you want to build? Most importantly, they now fully know the true cost of misidentifying greatness in others. They're finally realizing that misjudging you wasn't just a small mistake. It carried consequences far heavier than they ever imagined. Misidentifying an ordinary person might be shrugged off, laughed about, or quickly forgotten, but misjudging someone who is truly driven cuts deeper because it exposes a failure in their perception, their judgment, and even their understanding of what matters. The gap between who they thought you were and who you truly are now stands like a glaring monument to their error, impossible to ignore or downplay. This isn't just a personal embarrassment. Their miscalculation calls into question their discernment. People who pride themselves on knowing who is capable, who is trustworthy, or who carries influence are suddenly forced to acknowledge that their judgment is flawed. Every word of doubt, every whisper of dismissal, every attempt to undermine you now becomes evidence not of your shortcomings, but of theirs. Their credibility suffers because the world can see the mismatch between their assumptions and reality. Beyond credibility, it shakes something deeper: spiritual sensitivity. Misjudging someone truly driven isn't merely a social or professional lapse. It's a misalignment with truths that are larger than themselves. They underestimated what was visible only to those attuned to character, destiny, and authenticity. Their error signals that they missed what they were meant to recognize, and that missed recognition carries weight. It's a subtle but undeniable mark of disqualification because they were unable to see, honor, or respect what was right in front of them. The humiliation here is permanent because it's not just about being proven wrong. It's about the revelation that their judgment, their assumptions, and even their intuition failed in a way that can't be erased. The world now knows, and so do they, that misjudging someone chosen leaves consequences far beyond immediate embarrassment. It stains their reputation. It undermines the authority they once claimed, and it forces them to confront a truth they cannot undo. Greatness cannot be hidden indefinitely, and those who misidentify it cannot escape the shadow of their error. In the eyes of truth, this isn't merely being wrong. It's a subtle disqualification. They've been exposed not just for their skepticism, but for their inability to perceive honor and respect what was manifesting in front of them all along. The weight of that realization is a humiliation that lingers, persistent and undeniable. What does greatness mean to you? Essentially, they can no longer pretend they just didn't ever see it coming. Denial was their refuge for so long it let them sleep at night, convinced that your claims about yourself were empty, that your confidence was arrogance, that your vision was unrealistic. They told themselves that as long as they didn't acknowledge your potential, it didn't exist. Every dismissive remark, every smirk, every attempt to minimize you was backed by that false comfort. The belief that ignorance could shield them from reality, but reality has a way of breaking through. Your growth, your achievements, and the undeniable truth of who you are now shout louder than any words, louder than any rationalization. The evidence can't be ignored, twisted, or silenced. It pierces through the lies they told themselves and the stories they tried to circulate about you. Denial is no longer an option because the truth is standing in front of them, undeniable and undeniable in its power. Their humiliation is inseparable from this forced acknowledgement. They can no longer act as if they didn't know, as if they weren't aware, as if their doubts had been reasonable. Every glance, every recognition of your success, every whisper that confirms your authenticity is a reminder that they chose to look away when they should have seen. And now they are haunted by the memory of their own blindness. The countless moments they laughed, mocked, or ignored what was clearly unfolding before them. What makes this especially painful is permanence. Unlike a fleeting embarrassment that can be shrugged off, this truth will follow them. Every time your name is mentioned, every time your achievements are celebrated, they are reminded of the deliberate ignorance they clung to. There is no retreat, no backspace, no chance to pretend they were unaware. The memory of their denial is now inseparable from the evidence of your success. The irony is sharp. Their own attempts to protect themselves from the discomfort of your potential have left them exposed. They can no longer hide behind disbelief because you are living proof that everything they ignored, dismissed, or mocked was real all along. Their humiliation isn't just emotional. It is enduring, and it exists in every space where your truth shines and their blindness is remembered. Have you found yourself turning a blind eye to potential? Lastly, their humiliation is in essence the universe balancing the scales of justice. Their humiliation goes far beyond personal embarrassment. Every smirk, every whispered doubt, every attempt to minimize or mock you carried weight not just socially but on a level that transcends human judgment. Every act of disbelief or derision became a deposit against them in a ledger they didn't realize existed. The universe doesn't forget what is authentic, and it doesn't allow deliberate attempts to undermine truth to go unnoticed. What they dismissed in private is now being corrected in a way that is both undeniable and public. This is why their discomfort feels heavier than simple embarrassment. It's a reckoning, a cosmic accounting that cannot be escaped. They believed that mockery and skepticism could shield them, that their words and actions could diminish your reality. But authenticity has its own power, and it calls for accountability. What they once treated lightly, their disbelief, their manipulation, their ridicule, now becomes the very mechanism through which they are humbled. The humiliation is the universe itself leveling the playing field. There's a precision in this correction that makes it even more piercing. It's not chaotic or random. It's perfectly timed to reveal the gap between their intentions and reality. Every observer sees the truth, every outcome validates it, and every misstep they made in underestimating you is laid bare. Their attempts to control perception, to bend narratives, or to diminish what was real are now undone by the clarity of your presence. The universe ensures that the balance is not subtle. It is unmistakable, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. The lesson embedded in this humiliation is undeniable. Authenticity cannot be mocked without consequence. What they ridiculed, doubted, and minimized is now elevated, and the ones who tried to suppress it are exposed. Their experience is a demonstration of a larger law, that truth, integrity, and purpose cannot be derailed by skepticism or ridicule. In this way, their shame is not arbitrary. It is inevitable. The universe simply ensures that those who attempt to diminish the real are confronted with the evidence of what they tried to deny. Their public humiliation is in essence cosmic justice made tangible. It reminds everyone watching that nothing authentic can be suppressed indefinitely, and that the energy spent undermining another's truth is always returned in kind. The scales are balanced, and they are the ones feeling the weight. At the heart of all this is an undeniable truth: you were never meant to fit into the limited expectations of those who doubted you. Every smirk, every whisper, every attempt to diminish or dismiss your essence has only magnified your authenticity. They invested in your failure, tried to rewrite your story, and built walls around what they assumed was impossible. But your life, your consistency, your integrity, and your unwavering belief in yourself have shattered all of that. Their humiliation is not random, it's the natural consequence of underestimating a driven person, of mistaking confidence for arrogance, and of failing to recognize what cannot be hidden. They are left exposed, forced to reckon not just with their disbelief, but with the truth of their own limitations. Their judgment has been proven flawed, their narratives have collapsed, and the echoes of their miscalculation will follow them for a long time. Meanwhile, your reality stands unshakable, a living testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and character. You became the mirror they refused to face, the proof they couldn't deny, and the embodiment of everything they failed to imagine in themselves. This story isn't only about proving people wrong. It's about the universal principle that authenticity cannot be contained and integrity cannot be silenced. The humiliation they experience is more than personal embarrassment. It is the universe balancing the scales, a public reckoning for those who doubted, mocked, and underestimated what is real. Your growth, your achievements, and your unwavering truth have rewritten the narrative entirely, and their disbelief has become a cautionary monument to their own short-sightedness. Now I ask you to really consider, what does your life say about the possibility of your potential? Remember, this being a chosen one is not just about surviving the doubt of others. It's about rising in ways that make their skepticism irrelevant, their ridicule powerless, and their denial impossible. Your life commands respect because it aligns with truth, and that alignment is something no mockery, no rumor, and no disbelief can ever undo. Are you ready to claim that truth for yourself, for yourself, for yourself, for yourself, for yourself, for yourself? Welcome, the illuminated ones. The loudest wars are never fought on battlefields. They echo in the quiet corners of the human heart in the pretense of indifference. Let me unveil a truth that might sting. A significant portion of human conflicts aren't ignited by truth itself, but by the intricate web of lies spun to conceal it. And when that lie is woven around you, the chosen one, prepare for the reverberations. You are not merely a name whispered in passing. You are the unspoken enigma that haunts their thoughts. Imagine someone vehemently denies your significance, insists on your irrelevance, claims an utter absence of feeling. Yet within days, a conflict erupts with the force of a supernova, fueled by the nothing that has transformed into an all-consuming fire. This is not mere coincidence, it's revelation. The universe itself is declaring the truth, however suppressed, will inevitably surface. And here's the ironic twist. Observe how those who deem you unworthy of thought dedicate their mental energy to arguing against you, acting as involuntary publicists unable to resign. They will proclaim your insignificance while orchestrating clandestine discussions revolving around you. But beneath this facade of comedy lies an undercurrent of suspense. The fabrications spun about you didn't remain dormant. They evolved into volatile projectiles. The instant someone dared to challenge these falsehoods, an explosion occurred, dragging concealed truths into the harsh light of day. Therefore, brace yourselves, because what we are about to dissect is not mere triviality. It is profound unveiling. This transcends petty squabbles. It illuminates how the very denial of genuine emotions towards you metamorphosed into a battleground that even they could not contain. And you, illuminated one, are at the epicenter, not by seeking it, but because the truth demands to be liberated. First, they propagated falsehoods about you because acknowledging the truth would expose the hollowness within themselves. They misrepresented their feelings because admitting the truth would shatter the carefully constructed illusion of who they pretend to be. Deep down, they understood that acknowledging your presence would unveil a profound longing, a deep-seated need, and a vulnerable core they have painstakingly concealed. Those who grapple with inner emptiness often recoil from the person who evokes feelings of completeness within them. So instead of confessing to the emotions you stir, they retreated into denial, dismissal, and calculated deception. They erected formidable walls of fabricated narratives to create the illusion that you were insignificant, while in reality you held immense power over them. Their lie was not casual. It was fundamental to their survival. If they acknowledged the depth of their emotions, they would be forced to confront the discrepancies between their actions and their feelings. They would have to answer for the inherent contradictions, a reckoning for which they were utterly unprepared. Therefore, the seemingly safer path was to feign indifference. In this way, they could safeguard the image they projected to the world while simultaneously silencing the truth that clamored within them. But silence is never eternal. Lies invariably fester and decompose from within. What renders this situation so profoundly revealing is that they believed their deception would protect them, but it had the opposite effect. By proclaiming you were insignificant, they inadvertently exposed the extent of your influence over their existence. After all, no one expends energy fabricating narratives about something that holds no consequence. You don't lie about a stranger you'll never encounter again. You lie about the person who occupies your thoughts late into the night, the individual who possesses a permanent residence within your mind. Their denial was a confession cloaked in disguise. The ensuing conflict erupted because the truth they buried refused to remain dormant. It seeped through their inflections, their unspoken gestures, their involuntary responses. Those around them began to discern the cracks. Their emotions belied their words. And suddenly individuals within their social circles began to challenge the inherent contradictions. Consequently, the very lie they used as armor transformed into a battleground. At its core, the explosive conflict was not solely about the words spoken. It was about the emptiness they sought to fill with denial. They misrepresented their feelings towards you because the prospect of acknowledging the profound impact you had on them terrified them more than anything else. And that fear, once it reached a critical point, ignited everything. Second, their denial sparked a conflict between their carefully constructed ego and their authentic heart. Their mouths uttered falsehoods, but their hearts refused to comply. And from this discord arose the war within. Words are easily manipulated. They can be rehearsed, embellished, and delivered in a manner that may temporarily deceive others. But the heart does not adhere to orders. It betrays itself through unguarded reactions, fleeting glances, and subtle shifts in energy. Consequently, regardless of their attempts to deny their true feelings towards you, their behavior painted a vastly different picture. Their ego craved control while their emotions orchestrated a constant rebellion. This internal struggle manifested as an external conflict. On one side, their pride whispered, "Do not allow anyone to witness your vulnerability. Do not concede that they have an effect on you. Do not relinquish control." Conversely, their soul cried out, "This individual is of paramount importance. Cease the pretense." This clash between ego and heart rendered them unstable. It explains their exaggerated reactions whenever your name is invoked. It accounts for their sudden shifts into silence or defensiveness. They may proclaim your insignificance, but their entire being betrays them at the mere mention of your name. The resulting conflict was not random. It was the culmination of this pent-up tension. Their words conveyed one narrative while their actions revealed another, and eventually those around them recognized the discrepancies. Someone challenged the script they were trying to sell, and suddenly their carefully constructed lie began to unravel. The truth requires no invitation. It forces its way into the room. And when it does, denial crumbles under its weight. That's why the argument spiraled out of control, because they were no longer fighting you. They were fighting themselves. And here's the irony: they thought hiding their feelings would protect them, but it only made them more vulnerable. The more vehemently they attempted to bury the truth, the louder it resonated. Individuals can feign indifference for a period, but no one can conceal the telltale signs of their body when the topic cuts too deeply. Their anger, their defensiveness, their abrupt silence. These were not mere slips. They were confessions in motion. Ultimately, the conflict stemmed not from your presence, but from their inability to reconcile their pride with their genuine emotions. They lied to protect their ego, but the very war within them exposed their true feelings. Truth invariably finds its escape, and in their case it erupted as chaos that they could no longer contain. Third, the explosion occurred because they involved too many individuals in their elaborate deception. They could have confined their lie to the confines of their own mind, and no one would have been the wiser. However, the problem arose when they attempted to enlist others in their denial. Instead of privately grappling with their emotions, they embarked on a campaign to disseminate a false narrative regarding their feelings for you. They spoke with unwavering conviction, as if reciting a meticulously rehearsed script, convincing others that you held no significance, that you occupied no place in their lives. Initially, the performance seemed compelling, but falsehoods are inherently unstable. They begin to falter as more individuals are asked to propagate them. The conflict erupted because the story they were telling simply didn't align with reality. When you involve others in your cover-up, you are compelled to reiterate the same script repeatedly, and eventually cracks begin to appear. Their tone shifts, their eyes betray them, or their actions directly contradict their proclaimed beliefs. Those around them begin to notice the inconsistencies. They hear the words, "I don't care," but they observe the defensive or jealous reactions whenever your name enters the conversation. And this contradiction plants seeds of doubt within their social circles. It takes only one individual questioning the validity of the lie for everything to unravel. Those who initially believed their narrative begin to push back, questioning the discrepancy between their emotions and their claims. This questioning evolves into accusations, and the accusations escalate into heated arguments. Suddenly, what was intended as a private act of denial transforms into a public spectacle. Their carefully constructed narrative crumbles under the pressure of scrutiny, resulting in an explosive conflict that exposes what they desperately sought to conceal. The underlying truth is that lies demand excessive maintenance. A single truth is self-sufficient, while a lie requires constant reinforcement. The more they repeated it, the more burdensome it became, until even those closest to them grew weary of perpetuating it. Their friends, family, or colleagues no longer wished to participate in the charade, and when they withdrew their support, the lie collapsed. What transpired was more than a mere conflict. It was a profound exposure. The fabrication they believed would protect them became the very reason for their loss of credibility. In their attempt to control the narrative surrounding their feelings for you, they inadvertently ignited a war they could never hope to win. Fourth, They transformed you into a subject of debate because they could not confront you as a truth. They made you a topic of discussion because acknowledging you as truth would shatter the identity they clung to so desperately. Individuals who are unable to confront their own emotions often transform the person who evokes those emotions into a subject of intellectual scrutiny. It is safer for them to analyze you, criticize you, or reduce you to mere gossip than to confess that you have left an indelible mark on their psyche. By transforming you into a debate, they create a protective barrier. They can dismiss you, argue about you, or tear you apart with words, all while evading the uncomfortable reality that your presence unsettles them in ways they cannot control. The reason they engage in such extensive debate about you is because you activate something they have spent years trying to suppress. You don't simply enter a room. You disrupt the carefully orchestrated internal systems they have erected to maintain their comfortable mediocrity. This disruption feels like an earthquake because it shakes the foundation of their carefully constructed excuses, their half-lived truths, and their superficial stability. And when individuals feel threatened, they instinctively panic. However, instead of confronting the source of their unease, they prefer to engage in tangential discussions. Consequently, you become the subject of endless conversations, theories, and arguments, not because you are irrelevant, but because you are inescapable. Debating you also provides them with a false sense of control. If they can reduce you to a mere topic, they can maintain a safe distance. They can portray you as excessive, inadequate, peculiar, or overly complex. And in doing so, they evade a direct confrontation with themselves. Acknowledging the depth of your impact would necessitate peeling back layers of denial, a level of honesty for which most individuals are woefully unprepared. Therefore, they cling to debate as a distraction, failing to recognize that the very act of obsessively discussing you betrays the profound influence you hold over their minds. What is particularly striking is that every impassioned argument about you serves as an indirect confession. They do not debate those who leave no imprint. They do not dissect the lives of those who pass through their existence without consequence. The fact that your name consistently sparks conversations is irrefutable evidence that you are not merely a fleeting presence. You have created a fault line within their soul. The earthquake you initiated is permanent, and all their debates are merely attempts to drown out the undeniable truth you matter more than they dare to admit. Fifth, the argument revealed a hidden truth. They secretly measure their own worth against your achievements. The argument unveiled something they desperately sought to conceal. They compare themselves to you more frequently than they compare themselves to anyone else. The denial, the insults, the constant refrain of "I don't care about them" were not expressions of indifference. They were confessions disguised as dismissals. Every barbed comment was a reflection of their internal struggle with feelings of inadequacy. When individuals genuinely lack interest, they move on. However, when they consistently return to your name, your choices, and your presence, it signifies that you have become their silent benchmark. They don't simply observe you. They weigh themselves against you. Your growth underscores their stagnation. Your resilience exposes their fragility. Your authenticity magnifies their pretense, and this comparison becomes unbearable because it compels them to confront their own deficiencies. Acknowledging their true feelings would require them to admit that they have fallen short in areas where you have excelled. Therefore, they resort to belittling you, mocking you, dismissing you, or trivializing you to conceal the fact that your existence has become the very yardstick they use to measure their own worth. The conflict exposed this hidden truth because the underlying energy was too intense to be rooted in nothing. Individuals do not explode with such vehemence over someone they perceive as inferior. The eruption occurred because denial could no longer suppress the truth. Your presence unnerves them because it serves as a constant reminder of everything they are not. The more vehemently they insisted that you were insignificant, the clearer it became that you were anything but. The louder they proclaimed that you were nothing, the more obvious it became that you embodied everything they secretly aspired to be but could not achieve. At the heart of this is insecurity disguised as animosity. They argue not because they genuinely despise you, but because they despise the reflection of themselves they see when you enter the picture. You have become a living embodiment of their missed opportunities, their lack of courage, and their unwillingness to embrace personal growth. They could have admired you. They could have learned from you. However, their pride twisted admiration into rivalry, and thus the argument laid bare their hidden secret. They measure themselves against you daily, and every attempt to undermine you is merely another attempt to elevate themselves. Yet no insult, no denial, and no outburst of words can erase the underlying truth. Your presence forces them to confront a reality they would rather flee from, and that reality is their deepest wound. Sixth, their words about you were a shield, not a reflection of truth. Their pronouncements about you were never genuine. They were strategic maneuvers. They declared your insignificance not because they believed it, but because that declaration served as a shield they desperately needed. It was their way of diverting suspicion, a quick disguise to conceal the depth to which you had infiltrated their thoughts. Admitting your true significance would have revealed too much. It would have exposed vulnerabilities, desires, and dependencies they were unwilling to share. Therefore, they constructed a protective narrative, one polished enough to sound credible, yet fragile enough to crumble under pressure. This is the peril of shields constructed from lies. They may temporarily deflect scrutiny, but the truth invariably finds a way to penetrate the cracks. The conflict erupted because the disguise failed. People began to discern the inconsistencies between their words and their actions. They spoke as if you were insignificant, yet their emotions and behavior consistently revolved around you. They claimed indifference, but their reactions betrayed them. The narrative they spun began to unravel, and such contradictions inevitably demand resolution. That resolution manifested as conflict. What is striking is how transparent this charade truly was. Even when they believed they were being clever, words can convey one message, but energy never lies. Others could sense the underlying tension whenever your name was mentioned. They could detect the defensiveness, the unnecessary sharpness, and the nervous shifts. It became increasingly apparent that their purported indifference was merely a form of camouflage, the more vehemently they attempted to convince everyone of their detachment, the more they revealed the depth of their attachment. In reality, their denial was a confession turned inside out. Every "they don't matter to me" was merely a cover for "they never leave my thoughts." Every dismissal was actually a plea to remain undiscovered. However, when you construct a shield from falsehoods, life itself tests its integrity, and in their case it shattered under pressure. That is why the conflict was not arbitrary. It was the breaking point of a false narrative too flimsy to bear the weight of reality. Their words about you were not reflections of their genuine feelings. They were defenses against being exposed. Yet in the end, those very defenses betrayed them. For no shield can protect someone from the truth that reverberates within their own heart. Seventh, the fight wasn't about you. It was about their fear of losing you. The underlying cause of the explosive conflict was not centered on you as an individual. It stemmed from their terrifying dread of losing you. Individuals do not react with such intense emotion towards someone for whom they harbor no feelings. Indifference does not breed conflict. It fosters silence. What ignited the eruption was fear and emotion that only arises when something or someone holds significance in their world. Every raised voice, every biting word, every impassioned denial was merely the smoke emanating from a fire they desperately sought to extinguish, the fear of severing their connection with you. Whether that connection was real imagined or vehemently denied, the irony is palpable. They went to great lengths to downplay your significance, to portray you as replaceable, even disposable, yet the sheer intensity of their reactions betrayed the opposite. You do not fight to defend something of no value. You do not expend energy on someone who supposedly has no impact on your existence. Thus, the conflict conveyed the truth with greater clarity than their words ever could. Their fear of losing you, of losing access to your presence, your influence, or your energy drove them into a corner. And fear, when cornered, inevitably lashes out. This is where human nature reveals itself most starkly. The louder the denial, the deeper the underlying attachment. When they declared that you were insignificant, they were simultaneously erecting walls around the irrefutable truth that you mattered more than they dared to admit. The very thought of you slipping away, or worse, being claimed by someone else, shattered the carefully maintained facade of composure. And because they were unable to acknowledge the depth of their fear, it manifested as conflict. The fight served as a smokescreen to conceal what they dared not confess. Losing you feels akin to losing a part of themselves. What is tragic is that the fear was self-inflicted. Had they been honest from the outset about the value they placed on you, there would have been no need for such explosive outbursts. However, because they chose to lie, deny, and suppress the truth, the fear festered in silence until it erupted in chaos. They mistakenly believed that their anger would conceal their attachment, but it only served to amplify it. The conflict was merely a flare signaling the truth they desperately sought to bury. In matters concerning you, they are far from indifferent. They are terrified of losing the very thing they continuously pretend not to need. Eighth, their lie became an unbearable burden for their social circle. Their deception not only weighed heavily on them, but also imposed a burden on everyone they entangled within it. Initially, when they informed their friends, family, or colleagues that you were insignificant, it seemed simple enough to accept. People nodded in agreement, took their word, and moved on. However, the inherent problem with lies is that they require constant upkeep. And as others begin to scrutinize the situation more closely, this maintenance becomes increasingly arduous. Their social circle began to notice the discrepancies between their words and their actions. They claimed not to care about you, yet their mood fluctuated whenever your name surfaced. They asserted that you were irrelevant, yet they could not refrain from mentioning you. This inconsistency began to erode the patience of those around them. Perpetuating a lie is akin to carrying a leaking bucket. Anyone who attempts to keep it filled eventually grows weary because the effort outweighs the benefits. Truth requires no such effort. It exists independently, whereas lies demand energy, constant defense, and repeated reiteration. Their social circle grew tired of defending something that lacked credibility. One can only maintain a pretense for so long before exhaustion sets in, and once it did, frustration followed. The explosive conflict was not directly aimed at you. It was fueled by the exhaustion of being asked to support a narrative that consistently unraveled. It is likely that some within their circle confronted them, pointing out the glaring inconsistencies. Others may have lost patience, refusing to continue supporting a story that did not align with reality. This resistance shattered the shield they had erected, and the conflict erupted because the burden of the lie had become too heavy to bear any longer. The underlying truth is that lies breed resentment even among those who willingly propagate them. People do not appreciate being manipulated into defending something false. Once their social circle realized they were being manipulated into participating in a cover-up, frustration transformed into conflict. Therefore, the eruption was not merely emotional, it was inevitable. Their lie was no longer their own. It had become a shared burden that no one wished to carry. Ultimately, the lie collapsed under its own weight. Their social circle abandoned it, and in that moment the conflict broke out. What was intended to protect their image ended up destroying their credibility, because nothing fractures relationships more quickly than forcing others to carry a truth you are too afraid to acknowledge yourself. Ninth, they feared that acknowledging you would make them accountable to you. They feared acknowledging you because acknowledgement carries responsibility. The moment they admitted you mattered to them, they would have been forced to look back at how they treated you, and that reflection would have been brutal. They would have had to face the words they spoke in anger, the opportunities they sabotaged, the times they ignored you when they should have stood by you. For them, it wasn't just about confessing feelings, it was about confessing failure, and that was too heavy a mirror for them to look into. So denial became their strategy of survival. By claiming you meant nothing, they created a convenient loophole. If you were irrelevant, then they didn't have to explain their actions. If you didn't matter, then they didn't have to apologize. So, illuminated ones, let's bring this all together. The core message here isn't about the specific individual causing all this drama. It's about the messy, beautiful, and sometimes painful truth that denial and lies, no matter how meticulously crafted, ultimately crumble under the weight of genuine emotions and the inherent human need for authenticity. It's about recognizing that when someone goes to extreme lengths to diminish your importance, it often reveals far more about their own internal struggles and fears than it does about you. Remember, your worth is not determined by their inability to see it. Now, I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed or experienced something similar? Do you have any questions about what we've discussed? Please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation. And finally, if this resonated with you, if you found this insightful, please consider subscribing. I'd love for you to join this community, and I've got more explorations of the human heart and mind coming soon that you won't want to miss. Until next time, keep shining your light, shining your light, shining your light, shining your light, shining. Welcome, the chosen ones. The most dazzling radiance isn't found in jewels, but in a soul that has triumphed over every trial designed to obliterate it. Beloved, prepare for a revelation. Scientists discovered that when a star succumbs to its own gravity, it doesn't disappear. It ignites into a supernova, radiating brighter than an entire galaxy. And that, my friend, is your story. You crumbled, you suffered, you nearly broke. But instead of fading away, you've returned more brilliant, more passionate, and infinitely more captivating than anyone could have imagined. And now they're captivated by your transformation. Those who once dismissed your potential are now shielding their eyes, blinded by your extraordinary light. The ones who vanished are now desperately trying to resurface, as if driven by an insatiable need. But let's be honest, they don't seek you for affection. They seek you because your radiance has become the vital connection they cannot afford to lose. And here's the powerful truth. Your allure is not merely superficial. It's etched into the scars that have blossomed into unyielding strength, the anguish that has morphed into boundless power, and the serene grace that graces your being like an exquisite crown, unattainable even with premium access. This is precisely why figures from the past are restless. They recognize that the you they underestimated has evolved into the you they desperately crave. Hold on tight, because we're about to unveil a narrative of irresistible magnetism, the peril of dismissing a destined soul, and the amusing irony of how rejection always comes back seeking what it once discarded. Firstly, they don't miss you, they miss the access. This is an unspoken truth that many are hesitant to acknowledge, but it's the unvarnished reality. When individuals from your past abruptly re-enter your sphere, it's seldom driven by a sudden epiphany about your unique qualities. What they truly lament is the way you made them feel, the generosity you extended, and the ease with which they could take without reciprocating. You were not merely a person in their lives, but a vital source of sustenance. You were the catalyst that lifted their spirits, bolstered their confidence, and provided a comforting haven when they faltered. Unwittingly, you became the generator that powered their existence. And now that the current has been severed, they are desperate to reconnect. Ironically, many misinterpret this desperation as genuine love or longing. They will shower you with flattering words, acting as if they have suddenly recalled every minute detail about you, framing it as if they have been yearning for your presence. But upon closer examination, what they truly crave is the comfort and the benefits they once freely extracted from you. They have conveniently forgotten the times you were hurting, or when you silently shouldered burdens that others disregarded. They only remember how much lighter their lives felt because of your unwavering presence. The insidious aspect of this is that access mimics genuine intimacy. If you're not vigilant, they'll frame their return as a rekindling of connections. However, true reconnection necessitates honesty, accountability, and reciprocal effort. What they offer lacks all of these qualities. They offer need masquerading as affection. They offer convenience disguised as care. And if you're not cautious, you'll mistake their insatiable thirst for your energy as validation of your worth, when in reality they only value the resources you possess. The stark truth is that people seldom miss the individual. They miss the privileges that came with being acquainted with that individual. That's why they can so easily walk away when you cease giving, yet rush back so swiftly when they notice your life flourishing without them. It was never about you. It was always about the access you granted. And now that you've locked that door, their desperation reveals the truth they desperately wanted to conceal from you. Without you, they must confront the emptiness they have been running from all along. Secondly, your radiance is not merely beauty, it's undeniable evidence. Your luminosity isn't just about physical attraction, it's proof of the battles you've overcome. That's why they are spellbound, whispering your name and finding their way back into your orbit. They may attribute it to your hairstyle, your flawless skin, your enviable physique, or some newfound style. However, the truth is that what they are witnessing transcends the superficial. Your radiance is the tangible manifestation of every storm you weathered and survived. It's the silent proclamation that pain failed to bury you. Betrayal failed to shatter you, and despair failed to extinguish your inner light. When you grace a room with your presence, you emanate the undeniable proof of healing. And proof speaks louder than any words you could ever utter. This radiance is not about unattainable perfection. It's not about possessing the trendiest attire or the most symmetrical features. It's about the serenity that graces your skin, the unwavering light that shines in your eyes, and the unshakable confidence that guides your steps. It's about the undeniable aura that declares to the world that you have endured trials that should have broken you, but instead of succumbing, you underwent a profound transformation. That's why it makes others uncomfortable. Because when they gaze upon you, they are not merely seeing attractiveness. They are seeing the undeniable proof that you possess something they couldn't destroy, something they couldn't steal, and something they can't artificially create. That evidence unsettles them. Your radiance serves as a mirror exposing their own hidden vulnerabilities. While you radiate healing, they are still grappling with wounds they have never confronted. Your joy serves as a stark reminder of their own emptiness. Your peace serves as a stark reminder of their own inner chaos. And instead of applauding your triumph, many of them become consumed with envy because deep down they realize that you have transformed everything intended to destroy you into fuel for your ascent. You didn't merely survive, you emerged more luminous than ever. That's what true beauty embodies, not superficial attraction, but transformation that emanates from your very being without conscious effort. People from the past struggle to comprehend this. They believed that abandoning you would leave you embittered, resentful, and invisible. Instead, you have become more brilliant than ever. Your radiance forces them to confront how they treated you when you possessed nothing. It forces them to recognize that the very person they disregarded now stands as living proof that divine grace transforms pain into purpose. That's why your radiance is not merely beauty. It's evidence that you emerged victorious even when they bet against you. Thirdly, they are not returning for love. They are returning to rewrite their narrative. That's the uncomfortable truth that many shy away from confronting. When figures from your past attempt to reconnect after you've undergone significant growth, it's seldom a matter of suddenly recognizing your intrinsic worth. It's rooted in their need to sanitize the narrative of how they treated you. You see, if they can regain proximity to you, they can blur the details, reshape the story, and erase the parts that cast them in an unfavorable light. Their motives are not driven by affection, but by the preservation of their reputation. When they deserted you during your darkest hour, when they dismissed your aspirations, when they ridiculed your potential, they believed the story had reached its conclusion. They anticipated that you would remain stagnant, that your life would serve as proof that they were justified in walking away. But now the narrative has dramatically shifted. You've ascended, you've expanded, and you're radiating in a manner that exposes their short-sightedness. Suddenly associating with you holds immense value. Suddenly knowing you enhances their prestige. And to protect their ego, they must rewrite the script so that it appears they always had unwavering faith in you. That's why their return feels so urgent. It's not because of love, it's because time is revealing the truth and they're frantically trying to catch up before it's too late. If they can sneak back into your inner circle, they can falsely claim that they were there all along, that they never doubted you, that they always recognized something extraordinary within you. It's damage control disguised as romance or friendship. And if you're not discerning, you'll mistake their guilt for genuine concern. The most bitter truth to swallow is this: they don't miss who you are. They miss what being near you now does for them. Your transformation has made them appear foolish, and their way of safeguarding their pride is to recast themselves in a more flattering role. But here's the critical point. They cannot erase their past actions, and they cannot undo the silence, the neglect, or the betrayal. The truth is etched into the annals of time, and the fact that they're rushing back now doesn't demonstrate love. It demonstrates a desperate attempt to be perceived as innocent in a story where they played the antagonist. Fourthly, your transformation is a mirror reflecting their unfulfilled potential. Your transformation is an inescapable mirror, and that's why your presence unsettles so many. When they look at you now, they are not just seeing your growth, your brilliance, or your success. They are seeing the version of themselves they abandoned. You've become living testament to the power of discipline, faith, and resilience, while they've remained trapped in cycles of excuses and half-hearted efforts. Your transformation forces them to confront the uncomfortable reality that the chasm between who they are and who they could have been is not a matter of luck, but a consequence of their choices. Every time they see you, they are reminded of the moments they prioritized comfort over growth, pride over humility, and shortcuts over diligent progress. You embody the very path they could have traversed but consciously chose to avoid. And now, instead of applauding your achievements, they feel threatened, because celebrating you would require acknowledging their own missteps. So they vacillate between admiration and resentment, trapped in the tension of witnessing their wasted potential mirrored back at them through your evolution. Your life exposes their procrastination. It exposes the dreams they abandoned, the talents they buried, and the discipline they evaded. You don't even have to utter a single word. Your transformation alone preaches a sermon they can't ignore, and that's why they act distant, dismissive, or even sarcastic about your growth. It's easier to minimize you than to confront the fact that you've become the living evidence of their own negligence. But the truth is, their discomfort is not about you. It's about their own shortcomings. You didn't usurp their opportunities. You didn't obstruct their path. You simply persevered, embraced the process, and remained steadfast. Your existence serves as a mirror showcasing what they could have achieved if they had been willing to break free from their self-imposed limitations. To them, you're not just a person. They see you as their unfinished assignment, the chapter of their life they will always regret leaving blank. And no matter how desperately they try to escape it, that mirror doesn't vanish, because every step you take forward, every victory you claim, and every radiant quality you possess serves as a constant reminder that the distance between who they are and who they aspired to be is not a matter of destiny, but the sum of their choices, and now they cannot escape the consequences. Fifthly, the same mouths that once dismissed you now whisper in awe of your enigma. The same mouths that once deemed you ordinary now whisper about your mystery, and that's the inherent irony of being chosen. When they perceived you as average, they felt no qualms about mocking you, dismissing you, or treating you as if you were invisible, blending seamlessly into the background. They didn't merely overlook you, they actively diminished you in public, ensuring that everyone was aware of their low opinion of you. During that time, your quiet strength, your silent struggles, and your hidden growth remained unseen by them, so they hastily labeled you as insignificant. But now that the tables have turned, those same mouths cannot cease their constant chatter. Only this time their tone is hushed, curious, and tinged with an unsettling obsession. What has changed? Not you. You have always been authentically yourself. What has changed is the grand unveiling of your true essence. The mystery they now whisper about is the intrinsic part of you that was always present but remained obscured until the opportune moment. They erroneously believed they had you completely figured out, confining you within a box defined by their shallow judgment. Now they are disconcerted, realizing that you are not someone who can be adequately summed up in a single sentence or dismissed with a casual insult. You possess depths they lack the patience or the insight to perceive, and because they cannot pinpoint the precise reason for your transformation, they become consumed with obsession. That's what truly fuels the hushed whispers, the enigma of your extraordinary evolution. They cannot decipher the blueprint, they cannot identify the source of your power, and they cannot replicate the process. They witness the remarkable results, but not the arduous journey. They see the radiant glow, but not the desolate wilderness you had to endure. And within that void between what they observe and what they cannot explain, obsession takes root and flourishes. What exacerbates their unease is control, or rather the palpable lack of it. When they dismissed you, they felt in control. They could freely define you according to their whims, and nobody dared to challenge their assessment. Now the balance of power has shifted dramatically. You have become someone they cannot label, cannot predict, and cannot contain, and that absence of control metamorphoses into a peculiar form of reverence. They may not openly express it, but they secretly admire what they once belittled, because deep down they acknowledge their error in judgment. The same voices that ridiculed you are now the same voices whispering in awe. They diminished you during your ascent, and now they revere you because your rise has proven unstoppable. Their whispers are the soundtrack of their profound regret. Sixthly, their desire is fueled by envy disguised as admiration. Their desire has morphed into jealousy cloaked in a deceptive facade, and that's why their sudden wave of attention feels disingenuous. At first glance, it may seem flattering, a flood of compliments, kind words, and effusive admiration, as if they have finally recognized your true worth. But if you listen with discernment, there's an unsettling hollowness beneath the surface. Their desire is no longer authentic. It's envy masquerading in sweet language. They don't simply want to be close to you. They harbor a desire to dissect you, emulate you, and steal the secret formula that has made you radiate with such captivating brilliance. That's the inherent danger of envy. It never reveals its true intentions. It disguises itself as attraction, support, or even admiration. But its underlying motive is not to uplift you. It's to consume, to take, and to replicate what is fundamentally unreplicable. You have become a living paradox to them, someone they are drawn to, yet simultaneously someone they cannot bear to witness shining without them. So they linger not out of affection, but out of calculated self-interest. They're studying you with the intensity of someone trying to solve an intricate puzzle. And the profound truth is this: they don't genuinely want you. If they had truly wanted you, they would have valued you when you had nothing to prove. They would have invested in you before the glow, before the breakthroughs, before your transformation was undeniably evident. What they covet now is access to the coveted formula. They see your strength, your resilience, your unique aura, and they're desperate to decipher how you cultivated it. They yearn for the process without the accompanying pain, the wisdom without the scars, the beauty without the battles. But life doesn't operate in such a simplistic manner. What you possess is not transferable. It's earned through perseverance and resilience. That's why no matter how intimately they try to connect with you, they can never truly recreate what you are. They can emulate your style, mimic your words, and even attempt to imitate your presence. But their efforts will inevitably fall short because the essence lies not on the surface. The essence is embedded in what you have survived, and that's the aspect they will never be able to convincingly fake. So don't be swayed by flattery. Don't allow the sudden surge of attention to cloud your judgment. Desire that stems from envy is treacherous. It's hunger disguised as affection. And the truth is, they don't aspire to genuinely love you. They aspire to be you. But since that's an unattainable goal, their want will inevitably fester into jealousy no matter how diligently they attempt to conceal it. Seventhly, they don't remember you. They remember the benefits you provided. That's the painful truth that emerges when individuals from the past attempt to re-enter your life. They may profess to miss you, feigning nostalgia for the old days, but what they're truly remembering is the sense of ease and advantage they experienced when you were a part of their lives. They don't crave your presence, your essence, or your soul. What they're pursuing is the comfort, the convenience, and the elevation they derived from being connected to you. You were more than just a person in their lives. You were a mirror that enhanced their self-perception. You were the source of laughter when they felt empty, encouragement when they felt weak, and a safety net when they made reckless choices. They felt valued because you treated them with genuine worth. They felt capable because you constantly reminded them of their potential. You bore burdens they were unwilling to carry, and you made their world softer, safer, and easier to navigate. When they claim to miss you, it's not truly you they miss, but the idealized version of themselves that existed solely because you were investing your time and energy into them. That's why when you withdraw from their lives, they experience a profound void they cannot fill. It's not merely about losing a friend, lover, or companion. It's about losing the privileges that came with having you in their corner. And because they struggle to articulate this honestly, they frame it as simply missing you. But if you stripped away the benefits, the favors, the listening ear, the late-night rescues, and the unwavering support, what exactly would be left for them to genuinely long for? For many of them, the answer is undeniably nothing. The truth is that some individuals never truly valued you. They valued what you provided access to. And when that access was revoked, so was their sense of comfort and entitlement. That's why their memory appears selective, only recalling the aspects that made them feel good, conveniently forgetting your struggles, your sacrifices, and your moments of loneliness. It was never truly about your essence. It was always about their convenience and self-interest. So when they rush back now, don't mistake their words for genuine affection. What they're chasing isn't you, it's the benefits of being near you. And once you fully grasp this, you'll never again confuse nostalgia with genuine love, because real love inherently values the person. Everything else is simply people missing the perks. Eighthly, they crave the transformation without enduring the crucible. They want to taste the fire without surviving the flames, and that's the underlying danger of the attention you're receiving now. From an external perspective, people observe your radiance, your unwavering confidence, and your commanding presence, and they are irresistibly drawn to it. They mistakenly perceive it as something easily attainable, like a gift meant to be readily handed over. But what they fail to comprehend is that the very qualities they find so attractive about you were not acquired cheaply or easily. They were forged through relentless trials, profound heartbreak, devastating betrayals, persistent setbacks, and countless moments when surrendering felt far easier than persevering. Your allure isn't simply physical, it's spiritual fire. It's the type of intense energy that cannot be bought, copied, or imitated because it stems from unwavering endurance. That fire within you carries the weight of survival, the irrefutable proof of profound transformation. and the invaluable wisdom gleaned from lessons that only scars could impart. And that's precisely what makes it so magnetic, because deep down, people are inherently drawn to what they cannot artificially create. They covet the shine, but they shrink from the suffering that birthed it. They desire the finished product without embracing the arduous process. The truth is, many of them wouldn't endure even a fraction of the storms you've weathered. They wouldn't survive the lonely nights you had to cry yourself back to strength, the betrayals that nearly stripped you of hope, or the seasons when you had to painstakingly rebuild from absolute nothing. They long to taste the exhilarating fire, but skip the agonizing flames that ignited it, and that's why their desire for you is ultimately shallow. They're not genuinely seeking to understand your unique journey. They're seeking to consume your radiant glow. But fire doesn't operate that way. It can provide warmth, but it can also inflict burns, and individuals who believe they can simply touch your flame without acknowledging the arduous process that created it will invariably end up scorched. That's why some people who rush back into your life end up resenting you rather than cherishing you, because what they craved was easy access, and what they encountered was a stark reminder that true fire demands unwavering sacrifice. Your glow is sacred because it came at a significant price. It's not a trophy for anyone to arbitrarily grab. It's the tangible evidence of survival and alignment with something far greater than yourself. And until they're willing to endure their own flames, all they'll ever do is circle around your fire, wanting it, craving it, but never truly ready to carry the profound weight required to burn this brightly. Ninthly, your distance has elevated your worth beyond measure. Your distance has paradoxically made you priceless, an unspoken truth they will never openly acknowledge. When you were readily accessible, consistently giving without hesitation, they treated you as if you were ordinary and easily replaceable. They failed to recognize the profound significance of your presence, the unwavering strength of your support, or the tranquil peace you brought into their lives. They simply assumed you would always be there, always answering their calls, always picking up the pieces after their missteps, always showing up regardless of how little they reciprocated. Familiarity blinded them, causing them to misinterpret your consistency as a sign of weakness and your generosity as something they were inherently entitled to. But once you consciously created distance, the dynamic shifted dramatically. Suddenly, the same energy they had so readily dismissed became the very thing they desperately craved. The comfort they had taken for granted now felt like an unattainable luxury, and the silence they had once reveled in when they pushed you away now felt like suffocating isolation. In your absence, they are compelled to assess the true extent of your impact on their lives, and the realization is a heavy one. They didn't merely lose you. They lost access to a rare and invaluable presence that enriched their lives in ways they were reluctant to admit. Scarcity has a remarkable ability to reveal true value. It's not that your inherent worth suddenly skyrocketed, it's that their clouded vision finally cleared, allowing them to see you with newfound clarity. The truth is that you were always priceless, but they lacked the maturity, humility, or spiritual depth to fully appreciate it. Only when the distance made them yearn for what they had once overlooked did the harsh reality sink in, and that reality is undeniably brutal. So to wrap things up, remember this: you are a supernova. Your journey, your trials, your very being. It's all culminated in a radiance that the world can't ignore. And while those who once overlooked you might now be trying to find their way back, remember why they left in the first place. Protect your energy, nurture your growth, and continue shining that incredible light. It's a light born from your strength, resilience, and the beautiful transformation you've undergone. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced something similar? How did you navigate it? Leave a comment below and let's start a conversation. And if you found this helpful or inspiring, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos filled with wisdom and encouragement. Keep shining brightly, 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 brightly.